Hi, I am Adrienne Quinn Martin. I am your host for this week's episode of Blue Talk Texas, where we discuss Texas politics with Democratic candidates from across the state. Joining us today is Justin Calhoun, candidate for Texas House District 72, Jose Orta, candidate for Williamson County Commissioner, Place 4, and Mihaela Plesa, candidate for House District 70. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm excited to have you here. I know we have lots to discuss, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. We'll jump into our discussion, and at the end, you'll each have a moment to discuss your campaigns. And correction, Justin is running for District 73. Let me correct my paper so I don't say that again. Of course, we will be talking about the grid, which is on top of everybody's mind with the winter storm that Texas is experiencing right now. But okay, let's go ahead and jump in. Each one of you is in a district that has been kind of affected in the last few years by Republican extremism. Justin, welcome.
Thank you.
The district that you're running in, Texas House 73, correct? Yes. That's the same district where we remember the Trump train running the Biden-Harris bus off the road. That incident, it kind of happened, and then we never really heard, the after effect of that. What impact did that have on your community?
Well, this kind of behavior instills a lot of fear in anybody that would oppose the kind of thinking. And I know I believe there's a lawsuit coming out of San Marcos because a lot of the citizens felt like the police didn't respond accordingly. And I know for me, it was very close to home because they actually lined up for that just on the 35 exit to where I go to my house. And that day, when we were driving home, we saw them, and several of them were lined up on the highway. There was a lot of traffic. There was a big disturbance caused by that. And we saw several of them running across the highway through the stopped traffic and waving signs and flags. And we called the police to make sure that they knew the non-emergency number, to make sure that they knew that this was going on. And they told us that everything was fine and not to worry about it. So this type of behavior, it kind of connects a lot to what we've been seeing across the country, where people are taking this political ideology too far and physically threatening people because of a difference of belief. And I think that says a lot for our country at the state right now. We really need to remind ourselves that we are a very diverse country, and we are a very diverse community in Texas. And it's a failure on our part to not celebrate that diversity and not give it a place to have a voice. And this type of behavior makes people too scared to voice their diverse opinions. And I think that really is going to negatively affect us on a multitude of levels, legislatively, politically, socially. And it's something we certainly need to talk more about.
So there's kind of this lingering intimidation factor even after the incident. Were the perpetrators actually ever held accountable by law?
From my understanding, several of them were, and they were using a KKK act, I believe, to prosecute them. In fact, one of them individually, I don't remember exactly her name, but she even went to TikTok to explain what was going on and to try to raise funds for her legal assistance. So, yeah, we know that the legal system is in action, but it's not something that's being put out there publicly or discussed openly.
So you said, and I remember the reporting at the time, is that people had alerted the local police and there wasn't a lot of action taken at the time. Justin, do you think that Texas legislature could be doing more to make sure that local officials are enforcing laws and keeping their communities safe from this type of, terrorism, really?
Yeah, well, the local police, I don't think they expected it. I mean, our community is a lot of nice, very kind people. I just honestly don't think they expected it to go this way. And I think that's kind of, they thought it was just some people voicing their opinions publicly, doing some sort of protest. And I don't think they expected it to escalate the way it did. I think the Texas legislature, I think actually all of our leadership should really publicly denounce this type of behavior, period. End of discussion. And make it very well known that they do not stand for this at all. And I do think there's some areas in the Texas legislation that we could do to somewhat help facilitate a better resolution when these type of situations arise, where there could possibly be an escalation. But I think it really depends on our leadership. They really desperately need to just come open publicly and say they do not support this, period, that we have a difference of opinion, and that is exactly, we need to celebrate that, not make people afraid to have it.
And we're really not seeing that kind of leadership and example set, by the Republican Party, unfortunately. Jose, you're running in a commissioner seat in Williamson County, also known as Wilco. There's a Confederate statue on your county courthouse lawn, and it's kind of served as a beacon to these extremists coming there from all over the state. If you were elected as commissioner, what could you do to make your county safer and deter these extremists from flooding into your town?
Well, thank you, Ms. Martin, for inviting me to participate in this process. And I do want to make sure that people are aware that there has been that monument was not erected during the Civil War. That monument was erected in 1916 when Williamson County was deep in the midst of the Jim Crow laws. It was put there to intimidate and to scare communities of color from actively participating in the electoral process. And it is time for that monument to go. I have been working with a group called the Wilco Patriots for the past 6 or 7 years to try to remove that monument. We meet there every Saturday, and we've been collecting signatures from our constituents, from people who stop by and visit Georgetown, because it's on the Georgetown Square, a beautiful town if you've ever been to Georgetown. And we this Tuesday we actually delivered 7,000 signatures to our county commissioners court to let them know that there are people who want that monument moved. Now, the county commissioners have basically delayed and dawdled and done everything in their power to keep that monument there. And if I become a county commissioner, this is part of my platform to work with the county commissioners to have that monument moved. And it can be moved to a more appropriate place. There is a cemetery that is basically has a lot of Confederate soldiers, and it can be moved there. But it definitely needs to be moved from our county courthouse. I do want to mention that there is a group that is doing their best to keep it going, and they're called the Williamson County Grays. And they are basically sort of like the sons of the Confederacy, and they present themselves every Tuesday at County Commissioners Court, and then they give a little Confederate history to the county commissioners so that they can do a sort of like a counterbalance as to why it should remain. But we need to take control of the narrative, because Williamson County voted to stay in the union, and it was only after Texas that left the union that Williamson County, of course, had to stick with the Confederacy. So, Williamson County may be seen by some people as a conservative county, but it also has a rich history of progressive values. In fact, Dan Moody, who is the youngest governor in the state of Texas, was born in my hometown of Taylor, Texas, and he took on the KKK in 1923 and won. And that propelled him to the governorship in Texas. Taylor is a small blue collar progressive town. And we really do need to have more of a vision that I think Mr. Calhoun was correct in that Texas is a multicultural, multi-diverse state. And we need to now reflect that. We are, United States is a multicultural, multi-diverse democracy. And we all need to have to play a role in this democracy. And if I get elected, I will be the first Latino to ever serve on the county commissioner's dais. I'll be the first person of color to serve on the dais. And so we really do need to have more people of color that can sit on the dioceses, so that we are more reflective of the people we serve.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jose. Mihaela, how are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being on. Several of the people who were arrested, switching to same topic, extremism, but January 6th, several of the people arrested originated from Collin County, which is the district that you are running in. Last year, the Dallas Morning News ran a headline that said, "Are Collin County and Dallas suburbs spawning these domestic extremists?" What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think that we could be doing in the future to curb the growth of these homegrown terrorists?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Thank you so much for having me. This is a really important discussion. I am saddened when I hear the reports coming out of Collin County that constituents were, there on January 6th. That was a scary time for all of us. And it's sad that misinformation has gotten so rampant that people are leaving North Texas to go to DC to do these things. And that's exactly what's happening. I believe that our leadership has failed us. I believe that the narrative is off. And I don't believe that these things happen in a vacuum, right? I don't know if you guys remember a few years back, the whole Jay Helm thing. And, the amount of money, the amount of press that was given to conspiracy theories. We have leadership that feeds into conspiracy theories. We have blocks of people voting on the House floor, not because of facts, but because of misinformation. And I'm one that definitely believes that the fish rots from the head, and that the first thing that we need to do is stop misinforming our constituents of what is happening. I was sad to see people lined up in Dallas, Texas to see the ghost of JFK Jr. or something. I mean, like,
Yes.
these are people that are suffering. These are people that have lost their jobs, that don't have insurance. They need health care. They have, family that is passing away. And we really need to have more of a conversation about mental health in our state than, feed into these lies. The other thing that we're seeing is we're spending millions of dollars on our border. For what? To feed more lies. We have our National Guard that are committing suicides. They're not getting paid. They're getting tuition cuts. I mean, this is all a symptom of a much bigger problem that's happening in our state. My district, House District 70, is one of the most educated. It's a 75% voter turnout district. We see that this district, Plano, North Dallas, parts of Allen, parts of Richardson, they're trending blue, right? We're seeing suburbia trending blue. And we're seeing Republicans hold on to anything that they possibly can to continue having suburban parents come and vote Republican. It doesn't make sense because they're voting against their public schools, they're voting against their public health. That is why we're seeing these conspiracy theories thrive in my community. So the first thing I would do as an elected official was bring integrity and honor to the state house, and never feed into lies, no matter if that affects my power in some way. We need to be strong and courageous, and that starts with information and education.
Absolutely. So do you think that the Republican kind of leadership is kind of feeding into this stuff, for their campaigns? I mean, what's the motivation, do you think? Because I don't think a lot of them actually believe it. I hope.
No, I think it's what you're seeing. You're seeing primaries. You're seeing very competitive primaries on the Republican side. And people need to drive out a certain type of base. And sometimes that base likes politics more for entertainment than they do to run your government. And that's why, we all have PTSD over our electric grid. I say it all the time. We're the ninth largest economy in the world. We sit, as a global leader on a sheet of energy. We should not be concerned if our lights go out. That is a failure of our government. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, number one priority of your government should be the water is clean and the lights are on. That's what we pay our taxes for. So yeah.
Which right now we're seeing that a failure, in that people are so worried that, when it gets cold, that we're going to lose power possibly for days. I do want to switch gears. We'll go back to the grid in a moment, but I want to talk about something that each of you, if elected, will play a vital role in, and that's property taxes. Jose, the county commissioners' seats set the county property tax rates. For Wilco residents, do you have ideas on how to lower their taxes?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The county commissioners, they have a role in setting the property tax rate. However, it is not just the county commissioners who set the property tax rate. For instance, where I live in the city of Taylor, and there are 5 taxing entities that participate in the what your taxes are going to be. So I'm going to hold these candidates who are going to be running for for state office and make sure that they are aware that the majority of our tax increases are in the school property tax increases. And the tax burden has been shifted from the state to local entities. And it's embedded in our state constitution that the state is required to, provide an education to its citizens. And for instance, in the city of Taylor, our tax rate for Taylor ISD is $1.32 per $100 of our appraisal. And for the county, that's only 40 cents. So the vast majority of our tax increases are from the neglect of the state to adequately fund our public education system. And of course, the cities also play a role in the tax rates. And we have a crumbling infrastructure, 30 years of Republican control of our municipalities, small towns, and they're afraid of raising taxes, but they're going to have to because our infrastructure is in dire need. So back to what a county commissioner can do. A county commissioner can work with our state representatives, our cities, to make sure that we are all on the same page, so that we're not basically turning it over to somebody else and mandating that, sort of giving them mandates, and then not realizing that these are tax type of mandates, because there's always a cost to everything. And what we need to do is, I think the entire state of Texas has to reevaluate how it taxes its citizens. So it's a tough deal. I mean, I get this question a lot from the community as to what I can do to lower people's taxes, and I can only do as much as the state government will do. Plesa was right. This is, we have the 9th largest economy. How in the world are we financing it via a property tax alone? This is incredible, and this is something that we need our state representatives to look into.
Jose, just for people that don't know, what does a county commissioner do? Like, what is the main job of a county commissioner, and how do you affect residents that live in your county? How does the county commissioners court affect those residents?
Well, there are 254 Texas counties, and it basically is the municipal sort of the government for the counties. There is a county judge, and then there are 4 county commissioners. I, for instance, am running for Precinct 4, which is East Williamson County. The general duties, of course, is setting the tax rate for the county, but only for the county budget. We establish the county courthouse and the jails. We fund those. We assure the safekeeping of land and citizens' records, the court records. And of course, we fund the sheriff's department, and we administer the county's public health system. And we operate county parks, and we fix the county roads. We maintain all the county roads. So we are sort of like the middlemen. We are working between the federal government, the state government, and the municipal governments so that we can make sure that our citizens are properly taken care of. This is when I talk to people about voting, I say it's so important to vote all the way down the ballot, because it's those ballots, it's those people at the bottom of the ballot that have more power and more control over your everyday function in this state. And there is no more important position than a county commissioner. And a county commissioner is supposed to be a public servant. For many years, people who serve on county commissioners, they are there not to serve the community, but to serve their own self-interest. For instance, my opponent is a full-time developer, and he's a part-time commissioner. I mean, he is making buku money because he has sort of the behind-the-scenes information as to where the new developments are coming. And he never recuses himself. And then, of course, he never responds to constituents. I believe that county commissioners should be a public service, a community, service that sort of a constituent-driven position, where if somebody has a problem with a pothole on some county road, they should be able to call their county commissioner, and they should be put on some sort of roster so that it can be taken care of, instead of that county commissioner calling and speaking only to developers and taking people's land so that more roads can be built or more development can be built. I think that county commissioners play a vital role in keeping a balance between the community and the government that is supposed to be serving them. I'm supposed to be working for you, not the other way around.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to kind of go over that, because I don't think a lot of people maybe realize how much kind of power the county commissioners have in each county, and how they determine a lot of your living conditions. And they also are your kind of pathway to reach out to government and get things done. So on that same topic of property taxes, Justin, the question goes to you. After 20 years of Republican rule in Texas, we have some of the highest taxes, sales taxes and property taxes in the whole country. How do you think the legislature can lessen the tax burden?
So I think we need to find an alternate source of tax income, something that's voluntary, right? Legalizing marijuana is obviously the first thought that comes to mind. It has been a huge tax resource for so many states already, and we have seen it benefit the state. I know we played around with some numbers based on Colorado's numbers and compared it to our population here in Texas. And now, obviously, this is just an estimated guess, but we saw about $6 billion possible in the first year of legalizing marijuana. And there's a lot of talk. I want to talk about this as well. There's a lot of talk from the Republican side that they want to take state funds and pay down property taxes. But that's like using your money to pay down the money you're going to have to pay anyway. It doesn't make any sense, really, because that means we're going to have less funds to pay something else. So we need to find an alternate source to bring extra income into our state and specifically tailor that to our education. Oh, I think we lost her. So Comal County and Hays County. Comal County is the fourth fastest growing county in the country. Hays County is the fastest growing county in the country. We have major infrastructure issues, and Comal County has some of the lowest paid teachers in the state as well. So I would like to legalize marijuana, and decriminalize it as well, because it's a huge burden on our criminal system, to be frank, and to tax it appropriately, have it fund its own agricultural section, and then all of that revenue go into per student spending and teacher pay and retirement, because they haven't had a COLA adjustment for retirement in years, and they need one. And our teachers deserve to have a income that is equal to their dedication to our community and the future of Texas. And we need to take the burden off of homeowners and property taxes and move our education system away from being so dependent on our property taxes. It just, to me, makes sense. And I mean, we'll have to see how it works out when we legalize it, but we need to do it that way. And I know that's the only beginning. There's a whole need for restructuring our education system. There's a lot of things that we need to do. But I think that's a good first step forward, and will definitely lower property taxes for everyone.
Absolutely. Mihaela, Jose, and Justin both kind of touched on the reason why our tax rate is so high is because the Texas legislature keeps cutting funding to education and healthcare. How can the state of Texas better fund education and healthcare to alleviate the tax burden on the counties and homeowners?
Well, I definitely agree with the last answer. We need to get smart on cannabis. You have every state around us legalizing it and taxing it, and we need to bring our medical refugees home. So I definitely think that that's one way to do it. Look, I'll say it again. Governor Abbott is very good at his talking points. And during the last legislative special sessions, we saw property tax relief as another talking point. In response to that, we had a constitutional amendment proposed that raised the school homestead exemption from $25,000 to $40,000. What does that mean? That means that if your house is $900,000 or $150,000, the reduction of the taxable value is the same, $40,000. That is not right. We need to have real reform, not just talking points. Look, at the end of the day, the LBB, the Legislative Budget Board, has been known to just appropriate funds at a whim. We saw them do it last special sessions. They moved $230 million from one entity to the border. We do these types of things all the time. We have to be strong on what we want. We need the state to fully fund public ed. It needs to go to 50-50. We need to be reasonable. We need to fully fund our infrastructure. These are things that our state can do. We have a $250 billion budget, right? But the problem is that we need massive campaign finance reform. It's not going to happen when you have candidates taking millions of dollars from the energy companies and all these different special interest groups that feed into a system that do not allow for change, right? And so there are definitely ways for us to do it. We see us tinkering with the formulas every session. We do it, we did it this time with the homestead exemption. We did it a session or so before with HB3. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. I do honestly believe that we can bring resolve to homeowners. We've done it before. This is a system that we've moved away from, right? This is not a system that we need to find a solution from. The problem has started because we have a government that tilts very heavily to one side, and they tend to vote as a bloc. They don't tend to vote in the interests of their constituents.
I want
Right.
to,
Uh-huh.
can I point out something here? And that is,
Sure.
I served on the appraisal review board for 4 years. And I think that individuals that are new to Texas are in, they're always in a state of shock when they initially get their initial appraisals in the mail. They seem to think that Texas is wacko in the way their houses are appraised. And the reason why their houses are appraised that way is because of the fact that there is a sort of a lack of effort within the state government in fully funding, the government the way they should. They're relying on these people that are coming in from all over to buy that house so that it can be appraised at a much higher rate. And so basically they're it's almost a domino. It's almost like a house of cards that the new people are going to be stuck with the higher tax rates. And those of us who have been homesteaded, for instance, I can't afford to leave my home because even if I sold my home, I couldn't find a place that I could, basically afford. So I am stuck in my home until the day I die because I am capped, and my homestead is capped, and my taxes still go up because my appraisal continues to go up. It just doesn't go up as much as the guy that just moved across the street from me, and so I think that needs to be discussed as well.
I didn't even realize that. So explain that to me. Are the new homeowners being taxed differently than the people that have owned their houses for a while?
Absolutely. Every home is appraised at what it would sell for on January 1st of each year. And so what happens is you get a basically a letter from the appraisal district that says your home is valued at this amount. This is how much your home would sell for as of January 1st. But because I have lived in my home since 1990, I am capped at a certain rate. I'm also a disabled vet, so I get that exemption. I get I get some other exemptions as well. But my taxes are reduced. Now, if somebody bought that, my neighbor just bought a house across the street from me, and he paid top dollar because Taylor is growing, and we're going to have that new Samsung plant come in. So he paid top dollar. His taxes are going to be based on what he paid for on January 1st. So, for instance, just to give you an example, I bought my house for $50,000 in 1990. He's paying he bought his for almost $300,000. So imagine the look on his face when he gets that tax bill. And you don't get your homestead exemption until you lived in your home for 1 year.
Yeah.
So your taxes, you're going to be taxed at that new rate.
And I think that's something that people moving here, especially, and people that have lived here for a while, don't realize. They think Texas is the land of low taxes, but it's really not. We're just being taxed in a different way.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. And to add one other thing, Texas lawmakers really must reform our appraisal process to accurately determine the new values of the pandemic affected real estate markets. We haven't even brought in the effects of what we've seen the last 2 years and what that's had on our real estate markets. So next session going in, if we're going to have a real conversation, we need to talk about COVID. And I don't see COVID slowing down. I mean, I know more people that have this new variant that I knew in 2020 that were getting sick. So unless we start really having an honest conversation about the spread of COVID in our state, things like our property tax, these things are not, they're not just going to get solved on their own. They're going to get worse.
And this brings up a story when I worked with a state representative as a constituent service. I spoke to a woman who had lived in her home for 20, 40 years or so, probably longer. She raised her entire family there. She's a retired teacher. Her husband died in the home, and it was paid off. It'd been paid off for years, but she was losing her home because she could not afford the property taxes because the gentrification that happened in her neighborhood raised her property taxes to a point where she couldn't afford it. And I think it's absolutely absurd that our community members can dedicate their lives to paying off their home and taking care of it, but then end up losing it at the end, toward the end, of their lives. And then what are they going to do? And she tried to go through the appraisal process. She tried to do all those things, but they failed her. And so I totally agree. We need to reform our appraisal system. It's not clear cut. There's a lot of questions, and constantly, I know when I got my first appraisal for our house, I was like, what are they basing this off of? Because we bought our house in September, and January rolls around and they've tacked on $40,000-$50,000 to our appraisal. And I'm like, what? That's crazy, and just out of the blue. And I had no idea why. They wouldn't explain it to me. They told me how to argue it, but still, that's ridiculous to not be that clear cut.
Yeah. Texas, unlike most other states, is one of only like a dozen states that doesn't require buyers, sellers to report price information to local authorities. This makes it really, really hard for appraisal districts to determine property values, like an accurate basis for property values. So it's basically like saying, the clerk at a store is guessing what the price of something is at checkout. We have to fix this.
And here's the other issue too, is in the majority of the people are making payments on their homes. And so the escrow for property taxes are, they just go into an escrow. So unless you're a very diligent property owner, you're not really paying attention to, how much your property taxes are until you've actually paid off your home. And that's when the big shock comes in. You've paid off your home, and now you've got to set aside a monthly budget so that you can maintain that property taxes, so that you can pay your taxes on January 31st, and then so that way you don't incur a penalty and interest. And most counties, or the appraisal collections, the tax assessor collector, they start imposing those penalties even on February 1st. So there is no wait 48 hours or 24 hours. When your taxes are due, your taxes are due.
Yes, and that has to do kind of with what Justin said, with the human cost of people, losing their homes because they're being taxed out of homes that they've owned and paid off. And that just shouldn't ever happen. I want to go ahead and jump in here and make sure that we talk about the grid because everybody's, it's on the top of everybody's mind. We're in the middle of a winter storm right now in Texas, and people are so anxious about losing power again after last year's disaster. I know normally on a snow day, I would be so excited and outside taking photos. And this event that we're currently in, it looks beautiful outside, and I have no desire to be out there whatsoever because I have these horrible memories of it being 30 something degrees inside my house last year. Many other people, they're talking about, is the grid prepared for this? A lot of people don't think that the necessary steps have been taken to prevent something like the disaster from last year. So Mihaela, I want to jump in with you. If you were elected, what would you do to make sure that we have a working grid at all times?
Yeah, so I think that we need to connect to the national grid. For 10 years we can sunset that. we can put a sunset for 10 years and just say, hey, we're going to set these regulations. The state is going to mandate something for once, and have the energy companies pay for them, because they have they have shown that they have the money to pay for things. They've spent 4 point something million dollars for campaigns this last election cycle. So I think that that money is better spent on winterizing our grid. And so I say we connect to the national grid for 10 years, weatherize our infrastructure, and, really take out big energy campaign dollars, out of the equation, and not let legislators take big money like that.
I know Beto on his campaign has talked about us connecting to the national grid. Justin, what do you think about that? Do you think that that's the solution?
I think it is a possible a good solution. I don't see any fault in it. But I think, as being the energy capital of the country,
Right.
we make enough energy to support ourselves. And I think and the thing that always gets me is these energy companies, they knew that that their weatherization was not up to par. They knew it was a possibility well before the winter storm even happened. And so it's definitely a failure on their part not to winterize, especially since over the last, 10 years or so, it has snowed here. Not as bad, but we have had very interesting weather in Texas during winter. And this is something they should have seen. Emergency management should have said, look, y'all need to do this. And we wouldn't even have the problem. So even if we decide not to connect to the national grid, they need to winterize, and they need to be held up by the emergency management and said, look, y'all need to do this, y'all need to do that, y'all need to be prepared, because we can't afford any death. Any death is too high of a cost, especially when it's totally preventable.
Exactly. And I feel like we're not being told the truth about it. Coming from Abbott a couple months ago, he said he can guarantee that the lights would stay on. Then I believe 2 days ago, he said he can't guarantee that we don't have a load shed event, which would be a rolling blackout, which is what caused all the issues last year. Jose, county commissioners can't control, they don't have a say in the grid, of course, but local officials do have a job to prepare for these kind of events. What do you think local officials should be doing to make sure that all constituents have access to shelter, warmth, and water with these type of extreme weather events?
Well, I agree that as county commissioners, we don't have power over the grid. But I do want to point out that one thing that want to highlight that Taylor, that's East Williamson County, we are home to ERCOT. So we pay attention to the grid a lot in East Williamson County. And it failed us last year. We lost 3 people in Williamson County to because of the weather extremes. Now, as county commissioners, one thing that we can all do is we need to make sure that our constituents and the community is aware that climate change is real. I think that's one of the first things we need to do is we, as county commissioners, we need to invest in our own infrastructure and make sure that we not only have that we take a look at our carbon footprint in the local areas, but that we also prepare for these type of emergencies. It's not just going to be cold winter weather; it's going to be hot summer weather as well. I mean, we need to start thinking about cooling stations and warming stations. Taylor and Williamson County developed a comprehensive emergency plan so that we could make sure that we could keep our water treatment plants running, that we could keep our hospitals running, that we could have generators for our jails. I mean, these things we set aside a lot of money, and most of this money was federal money from the CARES Act, COVID relief money that was used to properly prepare for these type of events. Now, this federal money, Abbott has issued a letter on December the 13th warning county commissioners and local governments from taking federal money. And I think that that is like, uh, cutting our nose to spite our face because of the fact that we need this federal money, this infrastructure money, so that we can better prepare for these changes that are going to be happening to our environment. So I think county commissioners play a vital role in localizing some of these issues.
Absolutely. And county commission or county governments is what really is there to help people in these kind of disasters to make sure. I know that our city government was giving out water because we didn't have water for a week, providing those places for people to go. And as far as the federal money, it is so frustrating to me when I hear about either on the state level or the local level. I know my county has rejected money that would help people purely based on politics,
Right.
and that it's the Biden administration. And I hope that people will look into that, especially Republican voters, and realize that we're getting shortchanged because they want to play politics with this money that was given to improve people's lives. And, that goes with healthcare also.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, and we complain. I remember a quote Greg Abbott said one time when he was, I think he was Attorney General, and he said, "I wake up every morning and I sue the federal government." You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the mentality of our state leadership right now. And I completely agree with what you said. It's shameful. We need to do better. People cannot continue dying, and it's not just cold weather. It's hot weather too. We don't talk a lot about the fact that our grid almost failed this summer. And what are we going to do when it's 120 degrees out? So we need to fix the grid.
And we had an opportunity to expand Medicaid, and actually our state could have financially benefited from that quite a lot. Not only would it have covered the cost of the expansion, but it could have really supported especially our rural hospitals that we are seeing closing because they cannot afford to stay open. And they did that because of politics.
Exactly.
I mean, realistically.
Medicaid, I mean, most of the people on Medicaid are children, are elderly, these are people that have given, or the most vulnerable, right? The most vulnerable of our community. Last session, I did work on a Medicaid expansion bill. We expanded Medicaid to a hospital called BAMC in San Antonio. That's a veteran hospital that serves about 40,000 civilians a year, and really, really needed that caveat to expand Medicaid to that facility. We could not have done that without bipartisan support, right? Both Republicans and Democrats voted for that bill to pass. There was a Republican carrying it in the Senate. So this has bipartisan support. Once again, we see it being used as a political tool, and that is where we need to draw the line. I mean, Texans deserve better, and I don't understand why Republicans continue to push against these issues during their campaigns. That's the problem, is that they're campaigning against these issues that, like you said before, I think that they are in favor of some of them.
Right. It's pure politics or campaigning. Like, they want to campaign on, I'm against the liberal agenda, which is it's not the liberal agenda. It's helping people, which is the very basic function of government. It looks like we're running low on time. It's been such a good conversation. It was such a pleasure speaking with you all. Before we wrap up, I want to give you each a moment to tell everybody how they can learn more about you and learn more about your campaign. Mihaela, we'll start with you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me once again. My name is Mihaela Plesa, and I'm running in House District 70. It's in the southern part of Collin County. It's made up of North Dallas, Plano, 1 precinct of Allen, and 1 precinct of Richardson. Right now, the state house sits at 85-65, 85 Republicans, 65 Democrats. House District 70 is the only Democratic pickup that the House of Representatives stands to pick up this session. And I'm ready to flip it. For more information about me and my campaign, you can go to plesafortexas.com, Plesa for Texas.com, at Plesa for Texas on all the social medias. Please follow, retweet, get involved. We're doing virtual phone bankings, and we will see you at the polls. Early voting starts February 14th. I'm excited. Let's get it.
Thank you. And Justin?
I'm running for House District 73. That includes all of Comal County and the northwest half of Hayes County. So the Wimberley and Dripping Springs area, that's the section we got after redistricting. And you can check out my platform and connect to all of our social media through our website at Justin for Texas. And it's the number 4, not the word.
Awesome. Jose?
All right. My name is Jose Orta, and I am a disabled Air Force veteran. I have a master's degree in international relations and a bachelor's degree in business management. I am running for county commissioner to return it back to the constituents. I want to be a public servant. I have been a community activist and a community activist for 30 plus years and have worked in East Williamson County. I grew up here, and I really believe that we need to be more of a bread and butter type of government, and a government that actually responds to the people. Again, I will be running against a person who is a full-time developer, part-time county commissioner. I will be a full-time county commissioner. I ask for your vote. You can read more about my campaign, and if you go to my website, voteorta.com, voteorta.com. Okay.
Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you all. Again, my name is Adrienne Quinn Martin, and like Mihaela said, just a reminder, early voting in the Texas primary starts February 14th. These folks need your support. They need you to come out and vote. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for watching Blue Talk Texas. If you would please like and share this video so more people can hear about these amazing Texas candidates. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.